Hi, Millie. Welcome to the Yodos podcast.
Hey, happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. Whereabouts in the world are you at the moment?
At the moment, I've just got back to England, so I'm in Oxford at the moment.
Oxford. And
Yeah.
is that where your parents live?
So my parents live here before. I lived in Bath though, and then yeah, I went to America for a little while, but I was basically in Bath, and now this is the first time I've been back in Oxfordshire since I was whatever in my adult life. So it's
And
weird
how
to
old are
be.
you now?
I'm 24 now, but I moved out when I was like just freshly 18.
Was that for uni or something
Yeah,
different?
I went to uni originally and I glad never went back.
So where did you go to uni?
I went to Bath.
Oh, so you went to uni in Bath, that's right. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So I went to uni Bath and then I finished uni and I just never left.
And what did you study?
And so I studied business fashion.
Interesting. What did you have any like plan? Did you just like fashion and then thought you'd do
Yeah, that
business
was kind of
alongside?
well, I kind of wanted to do business originally and then in the end I just ended up taking like fashion modules and it became more about fashion for me than it did about business, but now I do nothing to do with it at all.
So what do you do now?
I make coffee, which is really weird, but I make like
Oh,
stuff.
I've seen this.
Yes.
That's
So
so
I'm like,
cool.
it's like my whole life. Like, I tell people I make coffee and they're like, so you're a barista. I'm like, yeah, but like,
Explain a little bit more about what you do because I've seen your Instagram actually. I think I had a little stalk and you do, and I saw some of your coffee art. But what do you mean by making coffee?
okay, so I guess like because I've always been kind of creative, but like fashion side of things never like it was never like I don't know, it just never really felt like me. And then after like uni, I got a job in a coffee shop just to pay my bills, and eventually just fell in love with it. Like it's like laughy art, but taking it to the next level of like if I do like competitions and
Really?
um in America I was making coffee. I don't know, it's like it become a huge passion of mine to just like learn not only like about like laughy art, but then like about the science of coffee, and it's just I don't know, it's crazy. There's so many layers to it, and it's just become like a way. It's more of like a career to me than just paying my bills now, which is
I love
brutal.
that.
This
So
is just
what would your dream be in the world of coffee if you could do
I
anything?
want to have my own coffee school in the end, and I want to like help people that are coming out of the system. So whether it be like psychiatric or like homelessness or convicts that are like trying to like get free, but they keep going in the system. So I teach them a skill to like I don't know, keep them, make them employable, and like give them a sense of
Yeah.
purpose mean that they stay in that line of work, or it just gives them like a skill and an ability to like see people, to just break free of like societal, I guess.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you know what? I was having a conversation with someone today I'm in a co-working space, and I was talking about a guy who I've met here in Australia. He's in his like late 30s and he's quit his corporate job in New Zealand and he's moved to Australia and he works in a coffee shop and he was like,
Love that.
I have been earning like ridiculous money all my life, working so hard, and no amount of money in success has made me as happy as I am working in a coffee shop
I
because
love
I mean,
so
I
much.
love coffee shops. They're literally my favorite place. I always say if I could do anything, I would open a coffee shop because they're just the best
Yeah,
place ever, aren't they?
the thing, I think it was over COVID for me, but I realised that being a barista or whatever you're doing, like the service industry, sometimes you're the only person that person speaks to in that day, and the way you interact with them is just so important. And as soon as that like clicked to me, it became so much more about coffee and about like people and like those little things that you do change the course of their day and
Absolutely.
impact them. And like I know how I feel as a customer when I go somewhere and I have good interaction. But if I can do something to like help somebody else
Amazing.
in that way, that's not so direct, but it
Yeah,
really does impact people. Yeah, I've never been as happy as I am when I'm doing my job, which is crazy to say.
that's incredible. That's such a good place to be. I think Yeah, it's sometimes it's finding something that you're just passionate about and you
Hmm.
enjoy, and focusing on that. It doesn't have to
It
be
really
like
is.
the what everybody else is doing. And I like
Yeah,
that. Like you're doing something completely different, but there's so many avenues that you can take that. So that's so
that's
exciting.
yeah, I love it.
So you've been to university. You're now making coffee. Um, is there anything else like interest or anything that you want to share with the listeners about you before we go into a little bit more about your mental health journey?
I'm kind of boring. But no, like I was a writer for a long time before. I write a lot, like I'm really into like journaling and stuff, but I wrote a lot of poetry before. Um I kind of like stepped away from that, and now when I write it's just more for like me and like my mindfulness and yeah, yeah, there's something too
And do
crazy
you
going on.
find that writing is like therapy for you?
Yeah. If my I actually like whilst I was over in America, my sister came to visit me, and so because of her being there, it was nothing on her, but I stopped writing every day. I kind of changed the course of my day just to like adapt to her being there. So I stopped going to my morning coffee to write. I do have a little like routine, and
Oh,
I stopped doing that, and I really like noticed it was like 3 days into her being there, I was like, I can't shake this like bad mood. And then I clicked and it's kind of like I know that it was because I wasn't like taking as a 10, just getting all sorts out every morning.
yeah.
So
I think
strange.
everyone have that creative outlet
Yeah,
of some sort. Like mine is
yeah,
morning exercise, and I'm the
yeah.
same. If I don't have my regimented morning exercise, I'm in a terrible mood. So
Yeah,
I
it's
can
crazy,
understand.
isn't it? Like how it works that these things that these like grounding techniques they actually work.
They really do. And it's free. Well,
It's
I
free.
mean, my
It's free.
CrossFit membership isn't free, but it's basically free. I could
Yeah.
go for a run.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
okay, well, you're definitely not boring. I can confirm that. Anyway, so thank you for giving the listeners a little bit of insight. That's always really helpful. Um, so yeah, I know that we tried to have this podcast conversation a while ago, and I think you originally reached out to me, and then there's issues with the with recording because you were traveling. So
Yeah.
we finally had the opportunity to do this one, and I'm so thankful that you're here. Um, I think the best question and the most broad question that I always ask first with guests is, what has your mental health journey been so far? I know it's very broad, um,
Yeah.
but I guess where did it all start?
Um, it started from like a really young age actually. I first started struggling. Well, I was first, feel there's a little bit of a blur to be honest, but I first was put into CAMHS when I was 12. Um, and I started struggling like very quickly, and I always felt like I was a little bit different. And don't get me wrong, I was always like quite a popular kid, like quite sociable, but I just felt a little bit different and maybe like slightly more intense than everybody else. The way that I experienced my relationships, I was very like all or nothing. Like it was, I was completely disinterested or interested in people. And through that, like naturally, I think it just I don't know, it's a weird place to be in when you're 12 and like most people are like shifting groups and like trying to find their feet and you have fallout with friends and I was like a little bit the people that I felt safe with I was like attached to and I wanted to be with them all the time or I just didn't really care. I didn't so I think I just started to notice that I was like slightly different and that became upsetting and I guess I became kind of angry at the world. So yeah, I had like have a history of like like that suicide attempt, and so that first happened when I was 12, and then it was like an ongoing thing. Around 18, yearly, which is very weird to like put a number on it, but it was always around the same kind of years, the same kind of time. But I didn't get a hormone diagnosis until I was 19, and that's when I was diagnosed with bipolar type 2. And that kind of made like a little bit more sense, but at the time I was in a relationship was somebody that didn't really understand mental illness. And so he kind of like told me that he didn't think I should take medication. But he kind of I don't think it's his fault as such, but he just didn't really understand it. And he was like, so bipolar is a really scary word. And I don't think it is what people always think it is. Um, and I think me being diagnosed with that maybe scared him a little bit. And he thought if I was taking medication that it was real. And he was kind of very much in denial. So then I became in denial with it. And but the more I was in denial about it, the less I was able to treat it. So then I would act irrationally, making bad decisions. Like I never had my child to be stable, so guys in it. But eventually I did start taking my medication and like things got a lot calmer in my head. My symptoms were a lot less. And this is while I was in a relationship. But then when we split up, I went off my medication, obviously, and I got really sick again, and in like quite a dark place. But also physically, my health. I got COVID, and then after I got COVID, so this is all around COVID time. We set up when I was 20 or 21, and after being together for like 3 years. So, and we lived together, so the whole course of my life just kind of shifted. And I got COVID during the breakup, and then I never got better after having COVID, and I just put it down to being anxiety, like because after COVID, I was just like grieving my breakup with my previous life, I guess. So, but then she went to doctors after doing 6 months on end, losing weight, just being in like constant pain, and it was a whole journey of like being in and out of hospital to figure out what was actually going on with my body. And then I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which spiraled my mental health to like a full other level. Because of then getting food. So, and that really triggered bipolar. So everything
Wow.
when I was diagnosed with Crohn, I was like not only like physically unwell, and I spent so much time in hospital because this trying to figure out what was going on with my body and why I couldn't recover from COVID. What we thought it was. And like a time I thought I had like maybe long COVID, but the symptoms didn't match up.
Yeah.
Doctors also were maybe there's just something wrong with you. But yeah, it all once I got the answer to Crohn, instead of it being like calm in my brain, it was just like an extremely dark place that just reminded me of when I was like 12 again. But this time I was like autoimmune compromised as well, and that's like a really confusing place to be in. Yeah, so a lot
Wow.
happened.
There's a few things for me to ask you, but before I forget this question, I think it's really important because you mentioned, and it was something I was going to ask you before you even said it. Um, there is a lot of stigma around bipolar disorder, and I
Yeah,
don't think people really know what bipolar disorder is. So, in really simple terms, as somebody who is diagnosed with bipolar, and I know there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, isn't there?
yeah.
So, would you mind defining what it actually means from your perspective?
Yeah, I guess like so for me, like when I was like 2, it just means that I have like emotional dysregulation. That's all it is to me. It's just the emotional dysregulation. It means that I feel the thing really intensely when I feel them. But that to me is a beautiful thing because like when I love with my whole heart. Um, but it does mean that when things hurt me, they really, really hurt. Um, I feel everything like rawly, and that like I don't know. I really have learned to love it, but when things go wrong for me, it does feel like the end of the world, and you do have to like make a conscious decision to look after yourself and put yourself around people that are the right energy for you, because when things go bad, they do go really bad. And it is those ups and downs that people talk about, but I would say that I would find similar type 2, it's more of like an internal battle than it is, you know, external. It's very much like me focused. And there are times when I make poor decisions and they impact other people. But for the most part, it's me that it impacts me. So I don't know, I wake up every day and I choose like to put myself first that day and process everything. And it doesn't mean that I have to take extra time and extra steps to like strategically process my emotions and run through them. And if that means writing them down and, going through them 100 times to make sure that I act accordingly, then I have to do that. So it's exhausting, but
Yeah.
it's my reality and that's okay.
And when you say poor decisions, would you be able to give an example of what that might look like?
Yeah, I think like my poor decisions are like putting myself in danger, like for example, like spending a lot of money that I don't have, or like there are times like when I would justify not paying my rent. Um,
Yeah.
and I look back on it and I'm like, what is actually like wrong with me? But there really is something wrong, and it is that chemical imbalance that's like not being able to, I don't know, you just get like this cloud of like, it really is a good idea. And it's like excitement. And it's like, in the time, it feels like such a beautiful emotion of like, just like elation that maybe you've come out. And this is like the highest manic for me. It's like, I've come out of like a really dark period. So to feel good again is like, this is great. But then you end up making decisions that pass like, gonna impact like other people as well as you, and they have a knock-on effect, and like you eventually feel the pains for it, but you don't feel the consequences until
At the time.
after. Or if it's like
Yeah.
even like spending time with people that I really shouldn't be spending time with, or like there's been like times like more subtle times, and it'd be like really late at night, and I would be like, I'm just a young girl, and I'd be at uni, and it'd be like really dark, and I'd be like, right, I lived in Bath, and I was like, I'm getting a train to Bristol for like no reason. And I'd go and see like another friend, but I'd have to travel like an hour, and it's like the middle of the night. It's like, why am I doing this? Because I'm sure I'll be fine, but I'm gonna perhaps put myself in danger. Why is that worth it? But you can't get through to yourself. I feel like
Yeah.
this is a bad idea. It's really weird but then I can have like, I had like 3 years where I felt no symptoms. So it's really weird. It's like because then you convince yourself that you're fine. And I've lost a lot of people because like my most recent relationship, he was an angel and he was so good to me. But because I've been like well from bipolar for so long, I never told him. So I'm not like in the end he found out, and he said like, and obviously he wasn't ashamed, but he wasn't upset that I had bipolar. He was upset that I lied to him because that's a huge part of who I am. But like this illness, it creates lies in your head.
So, how might bipolar affect your platonic and romantic relationships? Let's go platonic first and
Just on
then
it.
romantic.
I would say my relationships with like people, as in platonically, have never been bright because I've always been in like groups, I have, but I've always had one person that I can do, like my safe person. That's always been where I'm at with it. It's like I have like my one or two safe people. And then when I was at uni, I had like my two. Well, in my first year, I didn't really have like a close friend, but I had my boyfriend who was that like safety for me. Then when we ended up sitting out, I became friends with two guys, and they were literally like my soulmate, and they were really crazy intense relationships. No, I don't think that's just to do with the bipolar disorder. I think mutually we all just got on really well. But in the end, and again, as I said, I have no symptoms for a long time. So when I became friends with these girls, I was like doing really well, and they really helped me as well. And they actually knew I was really honest with them about everything. But in the end, those symptoms come out. And at the end of the day, like, as much as it breaks my heart, I'm not friends with these girls anymore. And I truly believe that a lot of it is because of my bipolar. I don't, I don't know, like I definitely have hurt people, and that's a really hard thing to come to terms with. Is when you come out of friendships with people and you have to say like that actually was my fault. Um, and it's like it's a really confusing place to be in. It's like you know that you're not a bad person, but you just can't always control. You know, like hindsight is a beautiful thing, but when you're in these episodes, hindsight doesn't exist because I can just make the mistake over and over again, and just in the end wish I never did. But I think like I know you get to a place where it's like I'm always going to be too much for people.
You're not too much for anyone. I
I
think
mean,
you're
like
right.
writing out here and say like, no, like my time is really valuable, and I'm at a place where I'm really content with myself. But that means that I'm gonna really struggle to let people get really close to me, because if I look at like all of my relationships, for one reason or another, they break down when I get really close to people. I've got friends, I've got great friends, but when it's like the friends that you spend like every day with, those cracks that show become too much.
Is that because you? We can change the conversation if this is difficult to talk about,
No,
by the way.
okay.
Um, but would you say that when you are in these like really close relationships with people that you like might act out in certain ways? Is that what you mean? You might like would you like push
Um,
people away when they get or is it that you want people so close and then if they hurt you or you feel hurt by them you'll like react?
yeah, I think I definitely react when I feel hurt from people, and I think it does come down to like I made it really clear the things that trigger me, and in past relationships, like maybe I wouldn't do that, and I just like suck it up and just, like, and then I'd react, and that's not fair. But I know myself really well now, and I do have certain things that trigger me. Um, and I think that in a friendship, it does go both ways. And if I like lay out the things that trigger me, and you accept that as a boundary that you're willing to not cross, when you cross it, of course I'm gonna react. And there's definitely have been times when maybe I've been made to feel like a bad person for just expressing, look, that was my boundary and you've crossed it. Where we go from here? And then it's like, well, look, you shouldn't act like that. And like, I don't know, like, yeah, there's definitely been like a few occasions where I'm like, actually, like, I can't be in the wrong right now because you accepted this is a boundary that you're willing to respect. So
Yeah.
how is that fair?
And what might a trigger be for you in a relationship?
Hold on, think. I don't know. I guess my trigger was like really personal and like to the specific
Right.
like
A
relationship. So maybe
specific
it wouldn't make
yeah.
sense to like
Yeah.
somebody, but to me it makes so much sense. And they can just be really tiny things, but they just
And
like I don't. It's really weird.
and in terms of triggers from like an episode perspective, and I guess that the first question I'm going to ask you is, or maybe just put these together because I will forget these questions, but I keep thinking of things. Um, so like, how would a bipolar episode be triggered, and how long might an episode last?
Yeah. So it can be triggered by anyway. I think for me, the biggest thing. Actually, I don't know if this is. I don't know many people with bipolar, to be honest. So I don't know if this is just me or if it's like happens to a lot of people. But for me, if I'm doing nothing, like if I've got no sense of purpose, I'm more likely to go into an episode. Um, or if I'm like really super tired and exhausted, then like I guess it's just the way your brain. You know when like I have people that don't have bipolar. Do you know when you haven't slept for days, or like you're struggling to sleep and you're tired, and you go into like delusion of like
Mm.
almost like lethargic, I guess. Um, I think that is something that really triggers me to go into an episode. It's like following through with that like delusion, I guess. I mean, it's not that, but it is just that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm all over the place, and I feel like, you know, whatever, that can really trigger me into an episode. There's like elation and like hypomania. And that's a key difference between bipolar type 1 and bipolar type 2. In with type 2, it's more like a hypomania, and with the type Y, it's more mania. So you feel like those like the elation is like way higher, but for me with bipolar type 2, it's I feel the depression more than I feel the manic, if that makes sense.
So, what does hypermania actually mean?
That's a really good question. I think like I don't know what the actual definition is of it, but for me, I guess the definition is just like a lessened version of mania. It's not extreme,
Okay.
and it's more like internalized for me.
So, if you're going through a hypomanic episode,
Yeah,
what might be some of like the behaviors and symptoms that you do? Would it be spending money,
yeah, it's definitely
engaging
fun.
in
Um, but for example, like when I went to America, I booked it 5 days before I went. I got on the plane and I quit my job. So I have 5 days of I booked it. I got on the plane, quit my job all in 5 days, and then I was there for like 3 months. And it's like that sounds crazy and fun. And it really was. It was amazing. It's just what I needed. But I look back and I'm like, somebody that doesn't have bipolar would have handled that very differently.
yeah.
Like you always like get excited about things. The thing was never leave the group chat, but except it does. And it's like I literally quit my job, I left my flat, I like gave up my entire life to just like, and
So
that's
very
like
impulsive. And
very
then,
impulsive.
yeah.
And it's like easy to justify because people should before I don't to be honest, they're really healthy for their bipolar. Like I get really like I don't know. I just don't really say it because, like, for a long time, for most of the time, I convince myself I don't have it, but I need to deal with that, which is why this is really important for me. But I think, like, most of the time, people can, like, talk themselves out of, like, big decisions. But, like, if I get excited about something, I'm doing it,
Gonna do
which is
it.
great. But also, like, sometimes you do have to think about things a little bit better.
Yeah. So there's no consequences for you in that moment. You're just going to engage in the risky
Yeah.
behavior or the impulsive decision or whatever else. And so like after the so I'm genuinely just trying to understand this, and I think really good to like understand the process for the listeners as well. So so you might have this hypomanic state episode which could last
Yeah,
for, I'm guessing, like hours, days, weeks, months.
exactly. Yeah,
And then after hypomanic stage, do you always then enter a depressive stage, or could it? No,
no, I can just flatline and I can be like just functioning as
normal
I
again.
always do. Yeah, which is crazy. But I would say that for me though, the on the other way, when I had a depressive episode, and I really do feel sadness like a lot. Like I not often, not necessarily often, but when I feel it, I really feel it. Um, but I that depressive episode will always like 9 times out of 10 be followed by like the hypomanic episode, which is weird. But on the other side, it's not like I'm always going between the boat. Like I do feel things like a normal person, I guess, as well. Like somewhere in all that craziness. Yeah.
And what might happen when you're in these depressive
I
episodes?
honestly like I do get again like it is destructive and I feel like nothing will get better. Like everything feels so dark. There feels like no way out. It's
Yeah,
like I don't want to go to work. I don't want to eat. I don't want to see anyone. I don't. All I want to do is just sit and whether it's cry or just be numb and just like drop. And I do act out. And as I mentioned before, like I do have a history of like suicide attempts. So when that sadness hits, that become like a coping mechanism for me, which is like a really like difficult thing to come to terms with. Like that's become a norm, but like an escape. because it really feels like there's no other way out.
And when you are in those depressive episodes,
Yeah.
is there anything that you do to manage it now, or is there like anything that you do to help yourselves get out of that period?
I definitely have got a little bit better of I think when the depressive episodes get the best of me, when I've like accepted it, that's when I can't get out and I have to just wait. But I can stop them. Now I mean, I was saying I can stop them, but I can like identify now. I've got a lot better at knowing myself and knowing the way my brain works. So I can sit there and be like, okay, I'm starting to feel bad now. So it's time to like do the things. And they are just basic things, but they are like, okay, I need to look after myself now. I need to make sure I have a good meal. I need to make sure that like I'm showering and doing those little things. I need to go for a walk. I need to do the things that make me feel safe. Go for a coffee, write in my journal. Like it is really important about prioritizing and making like the wise decision rather than just being like, nothing is getting better now and like accepting it. You have to, choose to be happy. And I think that's a big thing for me now is like it is recognizing like I actually can choose to be okay. I can choose to be just fine. And as long as I put the safe things in place for me, I am gonna be all right.
That's incredible. Like such a positive mindset. Have you, I know that you mentioned that you went to CAMHS when you were 12, but and a lot of the things that you mentioned there were very much things that you're doing yourself to manage
Yeah.
it. Um, but alongside that, do you have therapy? Have you had therapy? And like, do you take medication to manage this? Like, is there anything else?
Yeah, so I went to CAMHS from 12 through to like when I was, I don't know, maybe just before I was 18, I think. Then I was like not having any therapy for a while, and then I did uh talking therapies and the adult services when I was about 18, and then when I was diagnosed with bipolar, I did another course of like CBT and DBT, and then more recently, I was under a mental health occupational therapist, and that was amazing. Whatever we did, which I can't tell you what it was because I can't really remember, but she was incredible. Like her techniques were just so centered to me and my needs that rather than being like a general therapy, it was like, let's talk about you and how does your brain work. She was incredible, and like I owe a lot of the way my brain works right now to her. Um, and then what else? And then like, yeah, I take medication every day as well. And that definitely helps. But I've never been either just therapy or just medication. I have to do like a concoction. Right now I'm not doing therapy. So I've just got back from America. So over there I wasn't able to, but I was so distracted that I didn't really need it. But I definitely am gonna look into getting a therapist because I think if there's one thing that we should invest in, it's our own health. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely will.
And what is your relationship like with alcohol? Because I remember having a previous guest who spoke about bipolar and alcohol and how it can be really quite like triggering.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. I gave up drinking when I was at my worst physically. I didn't drink for about a year and a half, but when I was drinking, when I first turned 18, I was drinking really recklessly. And I hadn't been diagnosed at the time with bipolar, so it's really hard, but it would be like would have been hard to say like this is reckless drinking. It wasn't like addiction, but it was binge drinking and it was an escape and it was, I'm gonna drink. I dropped out of sixth form when I was before I was diagnosed as well. Like I connect all the pieces now, like this makes so much sense. But when I dropped out of sixth form, yeah, I was drinking like 3, 4 nights every week. And it wasn't like just drinking, it was like
Yeah.
really drinking. I had like a lot of arguments with my mum about it, and she's like this isn't you, what are you doing? But yeah, right, it's definitely like when you get into that cycle of drinking a lot, you're drinking all the time. But I'm very much better with that now. I stopped drinking for a long time, and I do drink again now, but I feel like I'm definitely like very self-aware, and I can like put limits, and I can go out sober now as well, which is like a really cool thing to be able to do. It's like just
Yeah.
have a good because I found myself like isolating myself when I wasn't drinking, and it's not because my friends were making me feel that way. It was very much an internal battle of like no one wants to be there, no one wants me to be there if I'm not drunk. But actually, like it's
Nobody
2024.
cares.
Yeah.
I think it's like for me, I still struggle with social situations when everybody's drinking and I'm not.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of confidence, to be honest, and
Yeah.
willpower to be in that position and to just say no.
Yeah.
When you know that alcohol's going to give you that confidence boost, it'll make you more social. And also, like, I do love a drink, so it's hard.
Yeah.
But for me, I know that it's so bad for my mental health.
Mhm.
But I think it's about finding that balance, isn't it? And knowing when to stop. Because I used to be the
Definitely.
same. I just didn't know when to stop. And that's when you end up making stupid decisions.
Definite. Yeah.
Um, so I was just intrigued to ask you a little bit about your parents and like how they took the whole diagnosis of bipolar and have they been supportive throughout the process?
Yeah, like my mum is, I'm so lucky with my mum. Like she's my biggest supporter, and like our family is no stranger to mental illness. So she's had her own personal struggles. My sister's had struggles. Um, but there's 4 of us. So I've got my older sister. We have the same dad, and then I've got 2 brothers. They're my half brothers, but they still like my brothers. Um, and both of them are on the spectrum. My youngest brother is waiting for a diagnosis, but the older one, who's still younger than me, but he has quite severe autism, and he was diagnosed that long before I was diagnosed with anything actually. So, we aren't strangers to
Mental health.
emotional struggle, put it that
Yeah.
way. But my mum was just relieved, to be honest, more than anything. She saw me struggle for so long, and I think, when I was really young and, making these decisions that were potentially going to cost my life, she was angry, but not necessarily at me. She was just frustrated that she was so helpless in the situation.
Yeah, of
I mean,
course.
like seeing your daughter like in pain every day, it can't be nice. But the way she handled it, and yeah, like more recently, this year, I had like a really dark time at the beginning of this year of probably the worst I've ever had of like relapsing into a depression, and I didn't want to get out of it, to be honest. And my mum is actually the one that, I mean, she was 3 hours away from me. I was living in Bath at the time, and my issue is when I'm sick, I don't want anyone to see me. I don't want people to see me like that because I'm such a positive person generally. I don't want anyone to see me when I'm not. Um, but so I never let her visit me, but she would check in on me 24/7. And like some of the things that she said to me as a reason I was like, I can't put my mum through this anymore. Like I've got to get better this time, and I've got to stay better because she wasn't making me feel like responsible for the way it was feeling, making her feel, but just like the thought of my mum losing her daughter. Like I kind of like stepped away from us being in the situation, and I was just like, a mum should never have to experience her daughter's death. Like I have to get better because I can't. And it was like some people would say like don't blame yourself, whatever, for like the way other people handle it. But actually, that helped me get over it. And if that helps me, then I've got to lean into whatever helps.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And I
I would
think
say
that
like
she's
sorry,
literally
go
a
on.
rock. Like I
Yeah.
think what you're saying is so important, because when people are at that, I've never actually experienced suicidal thoughts, but when I, you hear people talk about it, and when you ask them why they didn't choose to do it, it's as often as somebody else that's greater than them that stopped them from doing it, whether that
Yeah.
be um, whether it be a family member, a partner, or even like the universe. I've heard that
Yeah.
before, where they believe that there is someone greater than them in whatever capacity that might be that is stopping them from doing it. And sometimes you just need to have that reason to stay here, that
Support.
one reason.
Yeah.
And I think it is always about looking for those reasons, even if it's
Yeah,
the
you do have
simplest
to
thing
look for the,
ever.
even if it's like you're almost like bending it to, you know,
Making coffee, if
yeah,
if that is the reason why
yes,
today you choose to stay alive and every other
yeah,
day, then that's so fine. And
yeah,
like, it doesn't have to be a person, because not everybody has people.
exactly.
And that's why
Yeah,
I think it's really about it's really hard though when you're in those dark moments to find a reason. But I think
and
deep
that's
down
what I mean
there
about,
always is.
yeah, that's what I mean about like every day I wake up and I like decide to be happy. Well, it's not a black and white of deciding to be happy, but every day I look out my window and I choose to notice beauty in things. And maybe that's like a power that I now got because I definitely didn't have it before. But like I'm not in like I moved back to my parents right now, which is something that's like crazy to me, and I never thought I would do it, and I could let this like destroy me. But at the end of the day, I don't know, I wake up every day, look out my window, and it's not the nicest street. And I think, but I think I got there and I can name three things that make me happy, and maybe I am really looking for them, but they are there, and I just have to choose to believe that they're there.
Yeah, that's such a like inspirational and positive mindset.
Yes,
And
sisters.
I guess that leans quite nicely into the final question, really, around advice. And you've touched on so many nice little points there. But if you could give one piece of advice to somebody who's listening to this and struggling right now, what would that be?
I guess it really is just choose yourself. Like choose who you put around you, choose the energies that you lean into. But when it comes down to it, make sure those decisions are for you at the end of the day. Like your time is so important. Yeah, it's valuable, and you do have the power of choosing to spend your time wisely. And the only way that that's going to be, good for you is if the energies around you are ones that benefit you rather than ones that are negative. And then ultimately it makes your energy so much better. That's what it's done for me anyway.
Oh, that's amazing advice. And honestly, I've loved everything that we've spoken about today. Thank you for being so honest, and sharing your experience. I know that at points it was like difficult for you to talk about things. So I really appreciate that you were still able to do that. And I know that like for you, this is probably like cathartic to talk about it and to be like
Yeah.
share this part of yourself that you maybe feel ashamed of and you shouldn't.
Hmm.
Um, but also I know that you're doing this because you want to help other people, and I can see
Yeah.
that in the way that you speak. So thank you for doing that, and I have no doubt that what you've shared today will help someone who's listening. So
Oh,
thank you
thank you
so much.
so much. Honestly, thank you for having me.